Hi everybody, in this video we will go over some coding reminders for the TokenPass problem, one of the AP free response questions. So, let's look at these. Before we do that though, let's actually look at the hints for part A. So for part A, let me find the hints again. Here we go. So, we have to know how to initialize an array so that it has a certain number of elements, how to generate a random integer, and how to loop through an array. So I'll go through each of these parts one at a time. Let's go over how to initialize an array first. I also have how to initialize an array list. Now, let's say that we have a public class music player and it has these data fields: num listens, my songs, and truths. So, notice that none of these arrays have actually been initialized. They have been declared, but we don't know how many items are in the array. And remember, every array has a certain size, and that size cannot change. So before we use an array, we actually have to declare how many items are in the array. So let's take a look at this. Num listens is an array of integers. So I would just have to say num listens equals new int, and then my size. 5 would be my size or length and how many items there are in the integer array. Let's look at my songs. My songs is an array of song objects, so I would just have to say the variable name my songs equals new song, and then the size of my array. Here's another one called truths. This is a Boolean array. So I could go ahead and just declare it, and I could just say new Boolean and then whatever size I want. Doesn't really matter. So I could do it this way. Another way I can do this is, if you would like, you could declare your array with certain items in it already. So I could just say truths equals, and then curly braces, and then you put whatever values you want. So this will now have an array of size 1, 2, 3, 4, and it will have these specific items in it. You can also initialize array lists similarly. Now there's going to be a slight difference. So here I have private array list double ranks and private array list song my songs. So in my constructor, I'll just say ranks equals new array list double because it's an array list of doubles, and my songs equals new array list song because it's an array list of songs. Notice I did not have to put a size here, because if it's an array list, you actually don't need to declare a size, because the size of the array list will constantly change as you add or remove items, unlike an array, which will stay as a fixed size. Let's look at the second part of the hints of part A. So the second part was how to generate a random integer. So, how to generate a random number. So, let's think about generating a random integer. Let's say I want to go from 17 to 30 inclusive. Here's my solution: 17 plus int math.random times 14. Let's explain why this works. Why does it work? Well, remember that math.random will always generate a random decimal from 0 to 0.9 repeating, or 0 to almost 1. So I start with the number 17, and I'm going to have to add on a random number between, let's try to write this in, 17 plus a random number from 0 to 13. Because 17 plus 0 is 17, and 17 plus 30 is 30. I'm sorry, 17 plus 13 is 30. So, how do we do that? Well, to do that, we have to go int math.random times 14. The reason why is because math.random is 0 to almost 1. If I times that by 14, I distribute 0 times 14 is 0, almost 1 times 14 is almost 14. I still have to int this. remember that almost 14 is really 13.9 repeating. And if I int this whole expression, and keep in mind, I need these parentheses. That's very important because I have to int this whole expression. So I have to go int 0 is 0, int 13.9 repeating is 13. So this will give me 17 plus 0 to 13, which is 17 to 30. You can also write the solution in these two ways. That will also work. It's no problem if you do it that way. Here's a reminder of how to do random numbers. Let's say I want to make something happen X percentage of the time. For example, I want to print out Boyce Avenue 20% of the time. How do I do that? I basically just do if math.random is less than 0.20 system.out.print Boyce Avenue. Now why does that work? Well, it's kind of hard to see here. I'll try to make the drawing a little better. But there we go. So math.random is 0 to 0.9 repeating. That's just like saying 0.0 to 99.9%. Just like percents go from 0 to 100 pretty much. So as you can see on this number line, we go from 0 to 0.9 repeating, which is like saying 0 to almost 100%. So if I want to do 20% of the time, I'll just do 0 to 0.20. So that's why I would say math.random is less than 0.20, because it'll cover 20% of the 100%. The last part that we need to go over is basically for part A, it's how to loop through an array, setting each item of the array to a specific value. So how do we loop through an array? Well, down here it tells you an explanation. So let's say I want to loop through an array and change every item to 3. So I would say for int k equals 0, k is less than array.length, or you could say, because this is the same thing, k is less than or equal to array.length minus 1, because we want to go up until the last item in the array, which is array.length minus 1. Oops. I'll just leave that. And then we just set the item in the array to become 3. For an array list, it's pretty much the same thing. If my list is called list, I would basically just go from 0 to list.size minus 1. So I could just say, instead of array.length, I would just say list.size minus 1, or k is less than list.size. So either one of these in the middle would work. And instead of saying array k equals 3, I would use the not array.set. I would say list.set the item at position k to my new item, which is 3.14. I'll change the one down here because that's pretty much the same thing. But yeah, that's what you would do. Part B actually doesn't really require a lot of coding hints other than what we already went over in Part A. The more difficult part about Part B is just the strategy behind how to do everything. That's pretty much it. See the other videos for solutions and hints to each of the parts. Thank you.